Hello Internet, my name is Lave and I watched Detroit, which is the latest film from the legendary director that is Kathryn Bigelow, and right off the bat I'm gonna say that it's a really unpleasant film to watch. It's real uncomfortable viewing because it's recounting the events that unfolded during the 1967 Detroit riots, specifically the stuff that all went down at the Algiers hotel. Narratively speaking, Kathryn Bigelow is going for big scope here. The film even starts with an animation which explains why so many people evacuated or emigrated from Africa to go to America to look for a better life, basically because of events that happened at World War One. Now, whilst it was really helpful to know that, and it did look really nice, it's got this really stylized look to the animation which reminded me of Cubism, I would argue that it wasn't really necessary. It wasn't integral to the rest of the story or the rest of the film. At first I thought it was a production company logo, but then I started reading the subtitles. I thought, okay, it's a bit weird that you're doing an animation. Why not just show us stills or photographs? In fact, why even have it at all? Because it's a setup to the setup. Then the film really kicks into gear as you see the start of the looting and the riots, and everything just escalates over the course of 3 days, and it's intercut with real footage and news clippings which really heightened the sense of realism. It complements Kathryn Bigelow's handheld style approach to it. The tension and suspension rises, and along the way you meet all of the key players who would end up at the Algiers hotel or the annex to this hotel, and that's when stuff gets really horrible. You've got Will Poulter, who's a street cop who, along with his two cop buddies, have a shoot first, ask questions later mentality, and they try to justify all of their actions by saying that it's a war zone and they're just doing their job, when clearly they're just racially motivated. You've then got John Boyega's character, who's a thoroughly decent guy. He works two jobs. He's a factory worker during the day, a security guard at night, pulling double shifts because of all of the riots. He's just trying to keep the peace with the soldiers, while his black friends call him an Uncle Tom. I bet he wishes he was back on Jakku now. And then you've got the band members of the Dramatics, primarily following two of them played by Algee Smith and Jacob Lattimore. They get separated from their other band members and end up checking into the Annex Hotel, where they meet Anthony Mackie's character and a host of other people who are there having a party. And then there's a real head in your hands, look through your fingers moment where something happens. I'm not going to spoil what, but the police basically think that there's a gun within this annex of the hotel, so they storm it and basically intimidate, torture, beat and kill to try and get a confession out of these people, and it's absolutely horrific and so uncomfortable viewing. It is incredibly well acted though across the board. There wasn't a single performance where I thought that was bad, but special mentions have to go to Will Poulter, who is such a bastard as this street cop. He's come such a long way from that cute kid in Son of Rambo. John Boyega is such an honourable guy. He's awesome in it too, and I particularly liked Algee Smith, who's this talented singer within the Dramatics. You literally see his faith in humanity just disappear. It's absolutely soul crushing. I'm going to say it again, but it really is a tough watch, and it's a tough film to review as well because there's very few moments of kindness, maybe aside from John Boyega's character and a couple of random moments of decency from strangers. But even in the moments in between all of the horrific stuff, there's moments that just make you feel really sad. It made me think of Edmund Burke's quote where he said, "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." And indeed, there are a couple of moments in this film where I thought, if that person just did that, or if that person did something as opposed to turning a blind eye, then the events could have been avoided entirely. Not the riots, but certainly the events that happened in the Algiers, particularly with regards to Will Poulter's character. He really shouldn't be on the street. Now, with regards to some negatives, I do think the film is too long. The nature of the film makes it an endurance test anyway, and the fact that it's over 2 hours long makes it even more of a slog. And I would argue that Kathryn Bigelow was aware of that, because the third act feels really rushed. It turns into a half-hearted courtroom drama, which serves its purpose. It's there to give you that sense of injustice, and it is gut-wrenching, but I think the same effect could have been achieved with some photos and some text to explain what happened. On a technical level, I've really got no gripes. Kathryn Bigelow is one of the best directors working today. It's well edited, it's well shot, the sound design is extremely effective. In many ways, it's like Dunkirk. It's not explaining why this all happened, it's just letting you experience it firsthand. There is a disclaimer at the end of the film to say that the film was based on eyewitness accounts, so I'm not sure how much of it was true, but I have no doubt in my mind that Kathryn Bigelow has done those eyewitness accounts justice. I believe her objective was to make you experience how horrifying it was, and she absolutely achieves that. So that's my thoughts on Detroit, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my tracker now. I'm not going to call it an enjoyment tracker this week because I really didn't enjoy this film. I endured it and I admired the craft that has gone into the film, and I admired many of the performances. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of them get Oscar noms out of it. And that's not to say that it's not a great film. It is really very good, but it's great in the same way that Schindler's List is great, and more recently 12 Years a Slave is great. It's really interesting from a historical aspect, but it's not one that I want to watch over and over again. It's just too brutal. On a side note, I really hope Kathryn Bigelow's next film is something more lighter and just more entertaining, because you look at her last two films, Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker, and now Detroit, they've all got a political agenda or politically charged, and I wonder if she feels that being a female director, does she have to do films like that to be taken seriously? And I hope that's not the case, because Point Break is one of my favourite films ever. Punk, quarterback punk. So thanks very much for watching my review of Detroit. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give this video a like, and don't forget to spread the love and share the lave. Let's go back to Jakku. Subscribe.